You're listening to Crazy Shit in Real Estate. You'll be amazed at all these wild but true situations that others have found themselves in. Because on this show, you'll hear uncensored, unbelievable stories from the world of real estate. I'm Leigh Brown. Let's dive right in. Hello, friends. Today I've got you a story that you will not believe, because I didn't believe it either the first time I heard it, and it was so enthralling that I said Glennda Baker has got to be on the podcast to share this crazy story that could only happen in Atlanta, could only happen to Glennda Baker, and could only be survived by a professional with grace. So get your sip of something and enjoy this one. I'll see you on the other side. This show is brought to you by an amazing sponsor, and if you'll honor me with just a few seconds, I'd love to share some quick information with you before you hear the rest of the story. Hey, y'all, just going to take a quick break from this conversation to let you know about the sponsor of today's episode. That sponsor is, well, frankly, it's me. It's Leigh Brown University. Look, it's no secret that real estate is crazy competitive, getting more so every day. And when the pie doesn't get any bigger, but the people wanting a piece of it do, you've got to figure out a competitive advantage. And that's why I created Leigh Brown University. It's everything you need from soup to nuts, cradle to grave, point A to point B, whatever point B is. Each of you has different goals. So maybe you're a new to the career realtor, or you're a super experienced pro who can't figure out that next level. There's something in my course that's going to help you break through. It's designed for you before I even met you. So enroll in Leigh Brown University today. You go to www.leighbrownu.com and I'll see you there. Now, back to this amazing content. Glennda Baker, welcome to Crazy Shit in Real Estate.
I love it. Thank you so much for having me, Leigh Brown.
So you're in the hot Atlanta market, which is like 1,000 different real estate markets anyway. So tell my audience a little bit about your background, because you've been in real estate a long time. Like, you were in the business when Peachtree streets were still manageable before Buckhead came along. How crazy is that? That you've been in real estate long before Peachtree Village existed?
Oh, Lord, yeah. So I've been in real estate since Jesus was a baby, almost 29 years.
You are so close to Realtor Emeritus. Do you realize that? Like, you're so close. One more decade.
This close.
How did you land in real estate what did you do before real estate?
I designed and manufactured ladies' clothing. And I hated it. The people were so mean. And my mom said, Pumpkin, you need to be a real estate agent. And I said, I can't be a real estate agent. I get car sick. She goes, not if you drive the car. And I said, oh, Mommy, I can't be a real estate agent. She goes, oh, Pumpkin, you'll be a great real estate agent. So I went and got my license, and I needed a paycheck, so I was going to be an assistant. And I interviewed with these 3 ladies, and they were like soldiers. I mean, they were soldiers. They were reload queens. And I sat down, and in 5 minutes, they're like, you need to leave. You're way too bubbly. And I was like, oh, my gosh. They threw me out in 5 minutes. And then I went to these other ladies, and they were going to share me as an assistant. And it was great, and they were awesome, and I loved them, and they loved me, and it's going wonderful. And they call me the next day, and they're like, Glenda, we love you. And I'm like, oh, this is so awesome. This is awesome. They're like, we're not going to hire you. And I'm like, why? They're like, we don't want to train our competition, and you're not going to be an assistant for long.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. I was like, okay, great. So I went to this broker. I had been reading this book, How to Develop a Six-Figure Income in Real Estate by Mike Ferry. And back in the olden days, you had to take a test with a pencil and go down to the university, and then they mailed you back your results.
Yes.
I went to this broker and I said, hey, look, I've got 5 listings and I need somewhere to put them because I read this book and this is what it said to do. So would you hire me? And she goes, what do you mean you have 5 listings? I said, well, in this book, it said, go to everybody that you know and tell them they can buy or sell, whichever one is fine with you. And 5 people that I know said they would list their house with me. And she goes, you're joking, right? I'm like, no. And she goes, I'll give you a job. And I started at the real estate Taj Mahal in Atlanta, Georgia, Buckhead Brokers, almost 29 years ago.
Wow. I mean, look at all that happens when you do the work.
Yeah, it's so amazing that if you actually do what the book says, then you will actually be a success. I started September 13th, 1992, and by December, I was agent of the month.
About that. All right. So anybody who's listening and watching, if you're looking for the silver bullet to success in real estate, you should know it still doesn't exist. It still consists of talking to people. Oh, relationships and humans. So Glenda, you've been in the business for quite some time. You've seen things that you never expected to see and that you could never have even learned about had somebody thought about it because they never happened before. So I'd love to know, in Georgia, in Atlanta, in Glenda Baker's life, what have you seen that would qualify as y'all are never going to believe this story?
Well, I set up an appointment and the seller was hidden in the master bedroom naked. That's a good one.
Wait, hidden? Like waiting for you, like stalking behind the door?
So I called and I said, hey, and this was back in the olden days when you actually picked up the phone and called the seller. And I said, hey, this is Glenda Baker. I'd like to show your house at 1 o'clock. And he goes, at 1 o'clock? And I said, yes, at 1 o'clock. You're the first house on the route. And he goes, okay, that's fine. No problem. And so sure enough, at 1 o'clock, I show up with my client and we are going through the house. And I'm like, I think I hear something. Like, what is that noise? So we go through the house in the hallway, headed back to the master bedroom. And he opens the master bedroom door and he is naked as a jaybird. Not one stitch of clothes on, and he's wet as though he's just gotten out of the shower. And I'm in front, so I'm walking, and the client is behind me, and I stop. I'm like, and she leans over my shoulder, and she goes, I think I've seen enough. This one's not big enough for me. And I literally was like,
I love her.
And literally, she just turned around. She was so cool, much more collected than I was. But she goes, I think I've seen enough. This one's not big enough for me. And I'm like, oh, my God. So, yeah, that was good. And then I sold the wrong house. That was probably a real estate life right there.
That's real estate legend. Let's just be honest. This is real estate freaking legend. And it's not just the situation. It's how you handled it. So I think you're going to have to tell this story, Glenda. Y'all got to get a sip of something to listen to this one. And maybe take notes. It's complicated.
You might need a bottle of something for this one. So I had shown this guy houses and we finished up the tour and he goes, okay, I want to make an offer on the Buckhead broker listing on West Paces Ferry. And I'm like, great. I think that's a great house. He's like, yeah, that's definitely the one. And so sure enough, I write the offer. We negotiate it out. He signs off on the offer. He's going to tear it down and he's going to build his dream home. And West Paces Ferry is the same street that the governor lives on. So it's the fanciest, smanciest street in Atlanta. So he's going to tear it down. So he doesn't do an inspection. They do an appraisal. It appraises out fine, no problem. If Sunday night comes, we're not doing a walkthrough. The guy's tearing the house down, right? So it doesn't matter. In fact, it's going to be cheaper if the house is falling down. So it's all good, right? So he drives by the house on Sunday. He's like, calls me. He's like, hey, Glenda, the people are still living in the house. And I'm like, there's nobody living in the house. Because when we showed it, it was vacant. It was an estate. I'm like, there's somebody living in the house. No, Glenda, I'm telling you, somebody's living in the house. I'm like, well, let me call the listing agent. So I call the listing agent, and this woman has been selling real estate forever. I mean, she is a legend in Atlanta. So I call her. I'm like, hey, Patty, it's Glenda. Is somebody living in the house? She's like, no, Glenda, nobody's living in the house. I'm like, well, the buyer drove by, and he said somebody was at the house. Oh, it's probably my assistant just picking up the sign, getting all the stuff. I'm like, oh, okay, no problem. No, nobody's living in the house. We're good to go. Monday morning, we go to closing, and I had picked him up. And so we're in the car together. We go to closing, sign off all the papers. I get paid. He gets the house. You know, life's great. And he goes, let's go by. I want to show you what I'm going to do. And I'm like, okay, let's go. So we drive up Habersham Road, and I get in the right lane. And he's like, well, the house is to the left. I'm like, no, the house is to the right. And he goes, Glenda, the house I bought is to the left. And I'm like, let me just humor him. So we turn left, and I'm driving down West Paces Ferry, and I see the Buckhead broker sign, and my heart stops. Both of the listings on West Paces Ferry were both Buckhead brokers.
Because of course they were.
My heart stopped. And I'm like, that did not happen. That did not happen. So we drive by. He goes, see, look, there's people. I flipped that car around like I am Mario Andretti. I flipped that around and I am driving down, and literally I'm thinking, I go to real estate jail for this. Like, I think I lose my license. Like, this is really bad right here. Oh my God, Glenda, this is bad. So I'm driving, I'm trying to remain calm, and I pull in the driveway of that other house and I hop out of that car, and he's like, he's speechless. I'm like, this is the house you bought. And he looks at me and he sits down on this like wall, this knee wall. And he's like, his head in his hands, and he's like, did you sell me the wrong house? And I'm like, the wrong house? What are you talking about? This is the right house. This is an acre. Like, look at this. Can you imagine what you can do? Like, the location on the street, like, this is insane. Like, this is amazing. Like, your dream home, like, I can see it. The garage, the pool, like, look at the curb appeal here. And he looks at it and he's like, huh, you know? He's like, I think you could have never, ever, 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 ever gotten your home, the home of your dreams, on that other lot. Who wants to live by the History Center, for God's sake? This is the premium area. And he goes, well, you know what? He goes, I think you're right. And I would have never gotten you that house for this price. He's like, you know, Glenda, I think you're right. He goes, I think this is a much better lot. Literally, I got back in that car. I got that guy back to his house. I pulled over to the side of the road. I was physically ill. I saw my life flash before my eyes in that moment. I was like, I cannot believe this. Every time that agent sees me, she just showed one of my listings. It was appointment only. She goes, Glenda, every time I see you, I think about you selling the wrong house. And I'm like, no shit, lady. So do I. It was crazy. I was like, that did not happen to me. That, of all the stories, I mean, I had a townhouse under contract, and that townhouse, the adjacent townhouse, caught on fire during the inspection. Like, literally, like, I keep thinking to myself, like, this could never happen to anybody else. I mean, I drove up to a house for the inspection, and the City of Atlanta Fire Department is in the front yard in a canoe. Like only me.
And you've heard Pam Gebhardt's story about the client housewarming party that she threw where the house caught on fire, right?
No, I have not.
So we know we love Pam. Pam's another top producer in Atlanta. Her episode, I guess, is a couple of seasons ago. You got to go back and listen to it because it's a classic Pam Gebhardt story. And I love that woman. And it's grace under fire, right? So all these situations are grace under fire. And so you sell the wrong house, and what are you going to do? I mean, he's bought it. He didn't want to do a walkthrough, and probably should have. But here we have a tear down situation, and you think about who survives real estate and who doesn't, Glenda. The people who survive say, you know what? Here's a scenario we have. What are the options? Well, the option here was to do what? Drive back to the attorney's office and undo the paperwork and undo all the closing. That wasn't going to happen. And so the other alternative was, let me help him see what the potential is for what he was going to do anyway. And that's what you chose to do. Instead of panic, you chose solution because you can panic later.
Well, you know what was funny was the broker he calls me. He's like, I just want to ask you one question. How in the hell do you sell the wrong house, Glennda Baker? And I said, well, buddy, you taught me contracts. So
it's really on you.
It's really your fault. I mean, but I will tell you, it does not matter if it is a tear down, new construction, whatever. I do a walkthrough on every single house because from that day
with your camera too, right? You're like, let me FaceTime y'all, make sure you know what we're buying today.
Exactly. I mean, you just never ever know.
And it's also hashtag things that would never happen in the 2021 market where you would have two houses on the same street. That just sounds like a fairy tale to today's brokers where there's only a house every so often and doesn't have a sign anymore. Just to find them is a miracle. So like you are totally an anachronism having two houses on the same street.
Exactly.
All right. So Glenda, if anybody's looking for an amazing broker in Atlanta who does all her walkthroughs and who can actually help you make the most of every situation, that's about the only way we can describe you is making the most of a situation with grace, which is what professionals do. How can they find you?
I am the most unanonymous person in the world. It is Glenda with 2 N's, Glennda Baker, Baker. And it's Glenda Baker on everything. TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. Anywhere you're looking for me, just Google me and you'll find me.
And actually, you guys will learn a lot from her on TikTok, so you should go over there. It's not just for kids doing crotch jokes. It's also for highly professional realtors sharing really great information. And you'll notice that she's always Glenda Baker, so I don't think I've ever referred to you as Glenda. You're just Glenda Baker, so that makes it easier for y'all to remember stuff. And you should go by your first and last name, because I'm never Leigh, I'm just Leigh Brown. So if you have enjoyed this story and think you need to one-up it, I double dog dare you to one-up this crazy shit story. So reach out to me on social to be featured in a future episode. But in the meantime, you should reach out to Glenda and you should subscribe to the podcast, and we will see you next time, friends. As always, I'm so super thrilled that you joined in for more crazy shit. And if you're a realtor, investor, inspector, lender, or just a regular human being who happens to have an unbelievable story that you need to tell the world about, or frankly, you just need to one-up the story you just heard, then make sure to DM me on Instagram at Leigh Thomas Brown, or tweet me at Leigh Brown, or frankly, any social network where you hang out. I'm there. And if you had some fun, then you totally want to subscribe so you don't miss out on any future episodes.